and good evening. I want to thank Community First, the Colonial Dinner Series, and TV Hamilton for this opportunity, not just for me to speak to you, but I want to hear from all of you and get some feedback. I want to speak for a few minutes, and then I'm going to have our city manager talk to you. He's the day-to-day guy, and obviously he's got a better biography than I do. And then I'd like to hear a little bit from you folks. I really would. Many of you fit in to what Tom Brokaw called America's greatest generation. I know my late parents and uncles and aunts and many of you do fit within that great generation, greatest generation, he said. I remember back in my day, back when I went to school and I was taught by many people here at Hamilton City Schools, back in the 70s, so like from the World War II up to the 70s or so, we were in great shape. I graduated from high school and I went to college, but if I didn't, I could have gotten a job at Mosler, Champion Paper, Beckett Paper, Hamilton Tool, any place. Things were going great. Well, sad to say, things got worse. And I think we all know the economy crashed. There were some problems, even in the 80s, the 90s, 2000, and even now. But I can tell you right now, in Hamilton, Ohio, things are getting better. They're going to get a lot better. And you're going to hear some things today from our city manager, Joshua Smith, that I just learned today that I think is very exciting. So stay tuned for a great update from him. Now, we have got a couple of documents here that hopefully you'll get a chance to take a look at. And if you want a copy of this, we'll definitely provide you a copy. What's called our City of Hamilton Initiative Update. And I've never seen this in any prior administration, but it's a great document which gives you an idea of what's going on in various important departments in our city. I'll just give you some examples here. We got a section called Live, Work, and Play. Talks about the historic mercantile lofts, which people are living downtown right now in what would be considered urban type efficiency in 1- and 2-bedroom apartments. River's Edge, and you're all welcome to come to what's going to be a soft opening of River's Edge for a concert this coming Saturday. There's a couple concerts in the afternoon after our rowing regatta. I never thought I'd say the word rowing regatta when I was back in high school back in the 70s, but rowing regatta. And I'm glad to be able to say that. It talks about our Butler Tech School of the Arts. Well, where's that building, the Butler Tech School of the Arts? That's the old Hamilton Journal-News building, where my dad worked for about 50 years writing sports. He worked with Jim Blunt, who's in the audience here tonight, at that building. I was not real happy when I heard the Journal-News was leaving that building. I thought it was going to be an empty shell, but some people, including Mike Dingledine and others, got their gears going inside their head. And all of a sudden, what do we have? We've got an educational facility in downtown Hamilton where young people are learning ballet, adult students are learning how to get GEDs and to practice for their GEDs. And Butler Tech has their art classes there, their school for the arts. So strangely enough, a building which used to educate through newspapers is now educating in other areas. So very happy to hear that. But I can't tell you enough how great of a document this is. When I got sworn in on city council, actually when I got sworn in as mayor, before Joshua Smith arrived in town, which was, I think, a great day for Hamilton and continues to be, I said we were going to be a city council of timelines. You'll see timelines for projects in here, and he probably will cover some of those timelines. But there was a timeline for the Butler Tech building, and that's completed. There's a timeline for River's Edge, the amphitheater, where there's going to be a concert, like I said, this Saturday. And that timeline is almost completed. And there's timelines for other projects, including some of our green initiative projects, including Meldal Hydroelectric Power Plant on the Ohio River, which is a whole other story. That could be another whole dinner series about our utilities. We're proud that all of us in this room who lives in Hamilton owns our own utilities. And they happen to be the greenest utilities in the Midwest, if not a larger region than that. So we're very proud of that. Also, this Hamilton Update book goes into some of our other projects that are going on. I'm going to let the city manager talk about some, including, I believe, the Core Fund. Will you address that, Joshua, I hope? And other economic development tools that will bring jobs to Hamilton. And I believe that by December 31st, 2013, we're going to look back and say, this was a great year for jobs in the city of Hamilton. And you know, I've said it to a lot of people that I think jobs will cure a lot of what ails us in the city of Hamilton. If more of our residents are working, if there are more businesses in town, things just go better. There's more disposable income being spent at our stores, at our restaurants. There's income taxes being collected, which I know it's kind of a bad word, but income taxes do keep the streets smooth and keep our safety services employed and working. But I can't impress upon you enough that this booklet is kind of like a table of contents of what this city council has accomplished the last 3+ years and what our city manager Joshua Smith has accomplished. Another good book that we have is the 2012 Economic Development Report. I'm not going to go into detail on that, but in there's some very interesting statistics about the interest that companies have to come to Hamilton and invest, like building a new business, bringing in more jobs, retaining jobs, adding jobs, things that we want to see happen in Hamilton, Ohio. You know, back in those greatest generation days, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, we made a lot of things in Hamilton, Ohio. I mean, I know that. A lot of my friends I went to high school with, they graduated from high school and they started making things. I mentioned paper, safes. I even worked at Moser Safe Company for a while, making things. Well, I can tell you right now, I believe there's going to be an upswing in advanced manufacturing and making things in the city of Hamilton, Ohio. So there's going to be more jobs in Hamilton, and there's going to be some manufacturing jobs. It's not all going to be service-type jobs, which are okay too. But I'm going to turn this over to the city manager. I just want to say thank you for caring about your city, for volunteering, because I recognize some of you who volunteer on our various boards and city commissions. Thank you for caring about Hamilton, because coming to a dinner series like this to hear me speak and to hear some great things from our city manager Joshua Smith tells us that you care about what we're doing. I'll always accept positive criticism with solutions anytime you want to get a hold of me. But please, don't hesitate to contact council, come to a council meeting, or maybe we could have a council meeting, come here at some point in time. I think that'd be kind of cool too. But I'm going to now introduce Joshua Smith.
The document that the mayor was showing, our strategic initiative update, to be very honest, that document was the genesis of a thought that came out of a committee called the Blue Ribbon Committee of Area CEOs. Jeff Thurman's in the back of the crowd tonight, and frankly, I think Jeff was one of the people that actually said there's great things going on in Hamilton, but how do we capture those great things, and how do we articulate that to the public? How do we articulate that to people that are looking at Hamilton? And I will tell you this, and I say this very sincerely, Jeff Thurman's vision and his drive is probably one of the things that has kept Hamilton where it's at today. Without that, I really shudder to think of a Hamilton without a Jeff Thurman in it. So I do want to thank Jeff and the entire Blue Ribbon Commission that's worked very hard at doing some visioning things. I'm gonna show just a couple slides. Sometimes it's easier to show a picture than it is to talk, and I'm gonna walk you through a couple things that I think that you will find exciting. I always like to start off with this photo. This is one of my favorite photos of Hamilton. This is taken up at Veterans Park, looking across the river towards downtown. But the one thing about Hamilton, especially in Butler County, that makes it so unique is the fact that we have a very historic urban fabric. When you look at the newer areas of Butler County, they are nice, but they're not Hamilton. They don't have the history. In 1859, Abraham Lincoln stopped in Hamilton for a reason. It was an important place on the map. His train pulled up very close to present-day City Hall, and he spoke. When you look at the churches we have in the downtown, the existing architecture that's been preserved, the fact that we have just great history, really, in my mind, is what sets us apart. And in the last 10 or 15 years, I think we got away from that a little bit, and we started focusing on other things. I truly believe for Hamilton to be special, and it is special, it's going to be more special, is that we need to really refocus on what makes us unique in Butler County, what makes us unique in Southwest Ohio, and what makes us unique in the tri-state area. The mayor spoke about River's Edge. Again, having a river in our downtown is a very critical asset. Who has actually been down there to see this project since it's been under construction? Just out of curiosity, I see some hands. What you're seeing on the upper right-hand side, that is the bathroom facility. The concrete area that's going closer to the river, that's going to be the actual performance area. In August of this year, a tensile structure is going to be constructed above that. So there will be a covering over that large concrete area. And as you can see in the foreground here, this is where the seating will take place. Currently, the city has, I believe, 7 concerts scheduled during the course of the summer here at the amphitheater, and we're working with our volunteer coordinator, Karen Whitmer, to do some different things besides music. We want to have some more music acts, but we're really trying to diversify what we have. This is, as the mayor talked about earlier, a very critical piece of the live, work, and play. To be truly a full community, it just can't be a place where people live. We need people working here, but we also need people recreating here. So making sure that we're offering things that you see in other cities from a recreational standpoint is very important. But this truly is, and this doesn't really take into account the beauty of this area, because when you're standing on the stage and you're looking in the opposite direction, to me it's one of the other really great views of Hamilton, because you're looking at the Soldiers and Sailors Monument, you're looking at the Butler County Courthouse, you're looking at some of the great architecture we have. And before I go off this slide, and I'm going to touch on this on a future slide, you can see the smokestack at the former Champion Paper site. That actually is in the process right now of being demolished. A lot of the site itself is being preserved, and I have a slide that I'll talk on that, but this is actually a pretty good angle. So if you think about where the smokestack is, and those of you that are familiar with the former Champion Paper site, if you go south along B Street from that smokestack south, everything that's not on the river side of B Street is going to be demolished. So everything that's currently on the riverside is going to remain for now until we have a future plan for it. Then from the smokestack going north on B Street, where the historic office building is, they're putting a lot of money into that right now, and there's approximately 200 to 300,000 square feet of other brick buildings. Those are going to be reused as manufacturing. And I do have an announcement to make that I don't even think it's been released to the Journal News yet, so you'll have exclusive coverage on this one. Here is the former Hamilton Center building in downtown. So if downtown across the street from Journal Square, who was in this building in the past? This is the Harry Wilkes old building. Yeah, this is across the street from Robinson Schwinn. Well, this is, I remember when I first came to town and I saw this metal screen, I was really trying to figure out what the heck they were doing with that thing. I wasn't sure if like the building was falling down, they had to put it up to support it. I was actually told that Mr. Wilkes in the 1960s thought this was an architectural marvel and it was something nice. And maybe in the 1960s it was, but that is what was behind the screen. And that's something obviously I had never seen until the screen came off. The screen's been off now, Mayor, for about 2 weeks, roughly 2 weeks. But to me, this is one of the very exciting projects. You know, again, what makes Hamilton unique is the fact that we have, you know, architecturally significant buildings and great history, and the fact that this is going to be redone back to look like that, but obviously nicer, to match what's happened next door with the Mercantile project. To me, is just extremely exciting. But the screen came down a couple weeks ago, and I'm hoping that you will see full construction on that building by this fall. But I mean, already it's in my mind, even in that shape, it's a huge improvement based from what it looked like just a few weeks ago. East High Street is obviously a very important transportation corridor for the city. It takes roughly 35,000 cars a day. Some of the frustrations I've heard in the 2.5 years that I've been city manager, number one, if you get caught on a bad traffic day, you literally sit in traffic for a very long time, going both directions, just not one direction. The corridor itself, if you think of it from the underpass down to Route 4, it's not Hamilton's best image. And it's really unfortunate because if you look on the north side of High Street, you really have some beautiful churches, some nice architecture. The south side of the street is now predominantly fast food restaurants, things of that nature, which is fine. But so when we took a look at this issue, and this was actually, again, something that was started prior to my arrival here, was how do you fix High Street, not only from a traffic perspective, but from an aesthetic perspective. And this is important because this really shapes people's first impressions if they're not familiar with Hamilton. And it's interesting because people I've talked to that's been in Hamilton for a long time, they don't notice it as much as people that are coming in for the first time. And we have a variety of consultants and different people doing business in Hamilton that come in for the first time. And this is usually one of the first things they comment on. You know, what happened to this corridor? Why do you have so many pawn shops and gun shops and things of that nature? It's a very constant refrain. So through the city's utility funds, not our general funds, but through our utility funds, the City Council recognized the importance of this corridor, put together almost $12 million. Now that $12 million includes a big chunk from the Ohio Department of Transportation for some intersections. We're doing a lot of utility work, such as we're improving some of the gas mains, the water mains. We're taking all the electrical lines that run parallel with the street. We're going to put those underground, like we did into the downtown part of High Street. We're going to put decorative street lights up. The city's actually already acquired a building. It's the building that's closer to Route 4. It's a pawn shop. There's Jay's Furniture. If you're familiar with Jay's Furniture, it's the next building, and it's a pawn shop. The city's already acquired that building. That will be demolished. They'll be demolished to add some additional turn lanes to make the traffic flow better. But by this time next year, this corridor, while it won't be perfect, it's going to be substantially improved. And really, from an economic development perspective, this is big. I'm just going to give you a couple examples. For those of you that obviously are familiar with the former Ohio Casualty building, the company that currently owns that building, they've told me several times, they're based out of Los Angeles, that one of the biggest impediments they have to actually sell that building to someone that wants to use it was this corridor. And they say, Joshua, it's not the fact that we're 10 miles away from Interstate 75. It's the fact that it takes you a half hour to get there sometimes because the traffic's so bad. And they said the bad thing about being stuck in traffic is you have to look at all the bad stuff on the road as you're slowly going down the corridor. So this really was something that is identified, and council did a great job of staying away from general funds and using utility funds to make these improvements, which is one of the reasons why the utilities are so important to our community. We can make these type of projects, and I know we have at least one person here from our utility board, which I also appreciate their work. But this is truly an important project. I cannot wait for you to see this next year and to see what that type of improvement will look like. And we're hoping to parlay that into better economic development. Smart paper. Has anyone seen it in the last week since they took the shrubs out? I was over there yesterday, and it's a little eerie at times because there's no electricity in some of the buildings. I was walking around with my cell phone as a flashlight, but I was over there with the new owners. Now the city retained all the buildings that are on the river side of B Street. So everything that's by the river that Smart Papers used to own, the city still owns. Everything that's on the other side of B Street, on this side of B Street, is owned by the Moses Glick Group out of Pennsylvania. And this is what the mayor was alluding to earlier. I was privy to this yesterday. There was an interview with the Journal News today. That article should be, I'm assuming, in the paper tomorrow. I would not be surprised if it's actually on the internet maybe right now. But they made the first jobs announcement, which was the whole plan when the city acquired the building. Zumbiel Packaging out of Northern Kentucky is going to start the chrome coat process that Smart used to do. Smart Champion before that used to do at that location. They are a very large paper company in Northern Kentucky. They've actually been in the Cincinnati region since 1870 as a paper company, so this is a long time paper family. Zumbiels that have had it for, I think, 5 generations now. So I'm very excited about that. We've literally been working with Zumbiel, we being the city, for at least 18 months. The mayor's met Ed Zumbiel. He's been in an executive session many times. But this was very critical. So we really wanted to keep paper history in Hamilton, Ohio. And I'm very excited about this. Now, NewPage Paper is a partner to Zumbiel on this project. And NewPage is the largest paper company now in the United States. They're actually based in Ohio, but most of their manufacturing facilities are in Wisconsin. But they have them across North America, but primarily in Wisconsin. They're going to be what they call the base supplier of paper to Zumbiel, who will then coat that paper and then sell it. So to my knowledge, you're the first to hear this. I don't think anyone else besides maybe the mayor knows right now, except for maybe Richard O. Jones at the Journal News. But this is something that we've put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into to make sure. Now the building, and the reason I took a picture of the building, I want you to see this. They're landscaping all along B Street, and you'll see that in the next 10 days to 2 weeks. They're going to start, depending on the weather. And they hated all those shrubs that sort of covered up the beautiful building. You're going to see a lot more colorful flowers. You're going to see a lot of nice landscaping, but they're going to start at the office building, and they're going to go south along the buildings up until you got to that big smokestack. That's where they're going to stop landscaping at. So I'm very excited about seeing that, because in the 2.5 years I've been here, I've never seen really any landscaping at this site. There's 2 other businesses that are going to be going in that will be announced in the Journal News. So there'll be 3 businesses going in, roughly 60,000 square feet. I don't have a jobs number yet or a capital investment number, but I do know on the Zumbiel packaging side that the capital investment is going to be pretty sizable for some equipment. But this is very exciting because, you know, some people know this, some people don't, but a year and a half ago, or actually maybe it was just a year ago, when the conversation was taking place, there was a gentleman out of northern Ohio that wanted to buy the facility, and he wanted to store parts in this facility. And anyone in the room knows what happens if that happens. You have someone that buys a facility, they won't put any money into it, there is no landscaping, they're putting new windows in this building, they're putting new air conditioning units, they're putting money in these buildings now. That never would have happened. These buildings would have been full of whatever parts with almost no employees, and the weeds would have grown up, the windows would have been broken out, vandalism would have taken place, and we would have been stuck with a terrible site. So this really, and again, I mean, council deserves a ton of credit, because this was not an easy decision to make. In a very tough budget year, council spent $400,000 buying this building. But already in my mind, we've made that money back 3 or 4 times. It was probably the best investment to buy 45 acres on a riverfront that you could make. But they had the vision, and I really believe that in the next couple of years, as this continues to fill up, that you're going to see why this was done. But this is really truly a great project for the city. Finally, I just want to touch on a couple things. The mayor talked about Meldal, our hydroelectric facility that's being built on the Ohio River. That is a $504 million project. I mean, the scale of that project is truly tremendous. The type of communication we've had because of that project and the economic development possibilities that open up are truly amazing. The picture that you see here is the one on the left is on this picture here. This is Chris Lawson in my office, and this is Tim Wordman, who's a deputy city manager that oversees our utilities. But the reason that they were this is in the Cincinnati Business Journal, the reason that they were in this is because, or the Business Courier, is because they wanted to take a picture. You can see in the background, you know, the old coal plant stuff, but it's the juxtaposition of the old and the new. The fact that we have we were an old coal town for years, that's how we generated power, and that now we're transforming ourselves into a very green community. And that means a lot of things to a lot of different people, but I can tell you what it means for me. We are able to offer, you know, at worst, market rate utilities, if not even better cost utilities, but at the same time, the non-carbon emitting impact of our utilities, of our electric utility, will be about 80% in 2015. And that is huge. And it's huge because the EPA right now is really tightening the standards on anyone that still burns coal. And they're making them do a variety of things, including shutting those coal facilities down. So this obviously happened well before my time here. So this council and the prior council really need to be applauded for their effort in this, because they were able to look out into the future, again, make a very tough decision to build a facility for $504 million, but where it really makes sense. So again, it's just great. In the picture in the bottom right-hand corner, you know, we've received a lot of awards recently for our green efforts, and it's something that we're going to continue to do because it makes financial sense first and foremost, but it makes sense also for the environment. That being said, I was told I only had 10 minutes. I think I've talked 12, so I apologize for that.
As you can tell, we're trying to do some new things, the green initiatives. We're also trying to protect the old that works, that's been part of our history, part of our fabric, and that's the paper-related products, and some other things. I'm interested in hearing from you folks. What's on your mind? What do you want to know from us? How can we better do our job? I'll just go and say we got a good administration right now. I kind of feel like Sparky Anderson sometimes. I just have to get out of the way and let people do their thing, like this young man here, let him do his thing. Not that I don't bug him sometimes, but I want to hear from you. What's going on? What can we do? How can we better serve you as a city? This is my 4th grade teacher over here. I called her Mrs. Theobald for a long time. Mrs. Burkhart.
Thank you. Our streets need to be repaved. What's in the picture for that?
What's in the picture is our Public Works Director is trying to be as creative as he can to leverage money, to get money from Columbus to come down here, because we pay so much up to Columbus already, that we can use to pave our roads. Whether it's license fees, public works grants, he's doing his best to try and pave as many roads as we can. And do I wish I had $60 million to pretty much do every road? Yes, I really do, because I suffer the bumps too. I get the calls too. Which reminds me, we do have a pothole hotline that you can call up, just in case, as well as our website. Check out our website, please, if you would. We have a citizen request area that you can go on the website. You can go right to an area where you can say the pothole on such and such a street is the worst. Almost lost my car in it, do that type of thing. And we will try and get to it. But we are trying to leverage, get grants, do the best we can to pave as many streets as we can. You want to comment on that, Mr. City Manager?
Oh, no way.
All right. Great question. I get calls about that all the time. I really do. And we try and address them right away.
What about these railroad tracks were down B Street?
I can address that one.
I've learned working with the railroads one of the toughest things to do, but we'll let City Manager address this one.
I had a meeting this past Monday in Columbus with the Ohio Rail Commission, and we specifically talked about those tracks. Now, they have pulled out some of those tracks on B Street that used to go to Smart Paper, and this is where it's somewhat convoluted. The tracks itself are owned by a company called US Rail out of Toledo. The railroad right-of-way those tracks sit on is owned by CSX. And the Rail Commission had no idea that they've already started pulling out the tracks because they need to be notified so they can change the signage and things of that nature. So I was actually in a meeting with the Rail Commissioner himself, Matt Dietrich, and we're going to follow up on that and see if we can get that cleaned up. I really think what's going to happen is that rail line that actually goes to Smart Paper and it weaves its way through some residential neighborhoods over in Highland Park and then comes out, I believe, over at, where's that rail line stop? It's, is it Millville? Millville, yes. We talked to Matt Dietrich about actually turning that into a Rails for Trails. Because if there is no use, if they're pulling the rail line out, then we might as well do something productive with that footprint.
Mr. Stinger, great guy.
What about the intersection at Millville, Eaton, and High Street? When is that going to take place?
That's a great question. There's going to be news about that too.
I can actually, if you would like, would you like to see what the intersection is going to look like? All right, well, I'll try to talk and do this at the same time. The Public Works Department actually filed a DOT grant application to improve that intersection, and it was approved. They actually are going to fund 90% of that project for us. And you can see that, so where the road comes here, like Walgreens would be right here off the page. This would actually be all green space right here, because Eaton Avenue would swing this way, and you can see where it makes the intersection more of a 90-degree angle intersection, which would make it a better intersection. Currently in 2013, we're doing environmental studies and preliminary engineering. In 2014, the detailed design work will be done, and because of the timing of the DOT money, that's the only thing stopping us, since they're paying for 90% of it. When they give you money, it's in certain years. The construction, unfortunately, does not start till 2016, so we're about probably a little less than 3 years away from improving that intersection. But the money has been, we have a letter from the DOT saying that the money is there, the 90%. The city had to match it with 10%. I believe it's a $3 million project. So the city had to put in $300,000 and the DOT put in $2.7 million. And that includes, we have to buy some houses, we have to, potentially buy some buildings and then do the intersection.
Thank you. What's going in where in that block where the old Diebold safe used to be? All those buildings are torn down now.
Okay, that is part of a brownfield project that we got state money to be able to level the building. We've been very successful with those. Matandy Steel was a brownfield project. The Kroger's on Route 4 is a brownfield project, as is that. I can't give you an update on what it is. Joshua, do you know exactly what it's going to be? Because that's more of a private transaction there than anything else. Are you able to comment on anything what that's going to be?
Actually, let me show you this photo. If you look on the bottom right-hand side, this was the, I believe, the former Mosler property, and obviously you know what it is now. I think that the vision where the property you just referenced is similar to what they did on where the former Mosler site was, which is where the Kroger's is now. Obviously it won't be a Kroger's, but a continuation of that type of development. Something that will hopefully be more productive than what was there for at least in recent years. But if everything goes to plan, it'll look similar to what you see right across the street over where the Kroger's is.
The Elder Beerman building. I'll let the city manager answer that one. It's been a ongoing discussions, but I can say stay tuned because people are still talking. Is there anything you're able to say at this point in time, Mr. City Manager?
I will say this. We are in very active negotiations with someone, but at their request, we cannot talk about it. The one thing I can tell you, it will not be a department store. I know that's disappointing to a lot of people because I've heard since I've been here that's what, and we pressed hard when I first got here. We talked to everyone from a Target to just different department type stores, and it's not going to, from what they told us, just would not work. The positive news though is I think we're very close to getting the deal done. And when the deal is done, it's going to be, in my mind, structured very similar to what Smart Paper or former Champion Paper used to be, which is there's 160,000 square feet at Elder Beerman, and there's 4 floors, so there's 40,000 square feet per floor. And I think it's safe to say this, it will be a mixed-use project, meaning that the building as it currently looks on the outside today will look different when it's done. They're going to make it look a lot nicer. It's going to have, hopefully, some residential in it. It's going to have some commercial in it and some office in it. I think that I can say that much. But we've been working very hard on that, and it takes a long time to structure these deals, especially financially. The building actually was owned by a family in New York City that owned properties everywhere. And to get their attention on this one little building in downtown Hamilton was tough because they literally own buildings in New York City, they own buildings in Los Angeles, they own buildings in Seattle. You know, it took some doing, but we finally caught their attention, and I think that we're well on our way to getting that project underway.
But one thing I think you and I have discussed, you believe in retail in downtown Hamilton?
Absolutely.
Okay, and that's
have to have retail downtown.
when we hired this guy, I wanted to get that question answered. He believes in downtown retail because if you have people living downtown, you got to have a place where they can go shopping, not just for food, but also for other items. Other questions?
Is the old coal-fired plant still producing electricity? And if it is not, what's the plan for that plant?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. Part of our green initiative is we're doing more with natural gas. We're going to have a compressed natural gas fueling station on Route 4, and the old coal-powered plant is becoming gas-powered plant, and that is the plan of our utilities. Is that correct?
That's correct. The plant is operational. It is running no longer. There's no coal generation left there. As the mayor said, it's all natural gas generation, and it is what we call a peaking plant. So it runs literally not very many times during the year, but by virtue of having it in our power supply portfolio, it allows us to keep our rates lower. So we do an analysis. The one thing I will give our utility department a lot of credit on, every 6 months they do a very formal financial analysis on all the different utility assets. And you know, I had the same question. I'm like, well, if we only use it as a peaking plant, does it justify keeping it open and having employees down there? And the answer is yes, it does. It actually saves us money. And what we also do is a lot of times we sell power back out on the grid versus buying power in on the grid. And that turns out to be fairly lucrative for us also. But Doug Childs, the person that runs our Department of Energy Management, is very good at running the commodity side of the gas and electric utilities. And because of him, we do have the lowest natural gas rates in Ohio. And depending on the time of the year, our electric rates are usually in the lower third at cost.
If there were 3 things I want to hopefully keep in mind after we break up would be jobs, and we know the importance of jobs and hope we're getting more jobs in Hamilton. Green, as in green initiative, and our utilities, how important our utilities are. But also we are reusing and repurposing old buildings. So I would say the green initiative and utilities, repurposing old buildings, and job news. Those 3 things are good things going on in Hamilton right now. Mrs. Woodall.
I don't understand who owns the buildings to start out with. For instance, who owned the Ohio Casualty building or Mosler's?
That's a good question. Those are privately owned buildings, and that's the frustration the city has because we can't sell someone else's building. We can be a conduit and try and bring people in to the cellar, but and that's some of the frustration that we do have is we don't own Ohio Casualty. We don't own Moser. We don't own Elder Beerman. And that's part of the issue is we can't put a sales price on something. We can try and work with people, but that's a little bit of a frustration.
Well, why aren't they still in charge of it?
Well, We're dealing with realtors and brokers and the like, and then that can be kind of frustrating sometimes. Is it dinner time? Are we getting in the way of people's dinner? Okay. One more. And thank you all for conversing with us, because we need to hear from you. That makes us better public servants. Yes, ma'am.
Well, this is not a major development question, but the old brass doors on the Champion White House, are they going to keep those, I hope? I know you don't have any.
That's a really good question, because frankly, I got a call yesterday about those brass doors on that building. I mean, they are beautiful. We hope that they will be retained and there for a long, long, long time, like they've been there for a long time. Okay, I think it's dinner time.
Let me thank both of these gentlemen, obviously the mayor and the city manager, not only for an excellent update, but I will share with you in the last year and a half, 2 years, I've had the pleasure of working with both of them. And I want you to know, after spending my entire career in this community, I have never, ever experienced what I am experiencing now in working with city officials. It's very customer focused, without a doubt. They understand who their customer is. They're aggressive. They act at the speed of business, which is what we want, not as government. I will tell you, without giving you specifics, we're working on several projects with them right now within the city limits. Several of those could be in excess of $15–20 million. So we want to be an economic impact in this community, and they realize that, and they are doing everything they can to help us. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for giving up your time.
Thank you.